As Jesus delivers his second exegesis on the greater righteousness, he reminds us that the path of greater righteousness is not easy to follow. So this is the Sermon on the Mount and the cost to righteousness. As Jesus presents his second exegesis on the greater righteousness, he starts again with a very well-known command. You shall not commit adultery. Once again, very well accepted, very uncontested in the time of Jesus. And once again, Jesus, though, almost seems to tighten up on it, and he really begins to again drive at the heart of what is behind it. Because he says, not only is it a case of those who actually commit adultery, but Jesus says not only committing the physical act of adultery, just thinking about committing the act of adultery, just lusting after a woman is also a step along the path of unrighteousness. Or as Saint Melodius of Olympus said about this verse, it is not the fruit of adultery that he commands us to cast out, but its seed. And here's the thing, Jesus isn't saying that lusting after the woman and committing the physical act of adultery are equal with one another in their unrighteousness. What he's saying is one can grow and lead into the other. So one escalates up into the other. What starts as a seed in the heart grows into this tree of action. And this is a really good segue into that next verse, because Jesus talks about, if there is something that causes you to sin, if it's your eye, pluck it out. If it's your hand, cut it off. Get rid of it. If there is something that is taking you away from righteousness, it is worth the cost to remove it completely. Now, over the centuries, this language of if something causes you to sin, cut it off, has been interpreted several different ways. For some, it's taken very literally. There were people who would become eunuchs for the kingdom of God. In other cases, though, it's typically been understood kind of figuratively or metaphorically. If there's something in your life, you need to consider removing it. Some people have applied this by saying if there are friends and people that are causing you to sin, you need to think about cutting them out of your life. You'll sometimes hear some of the people in our Celebrate Recovery talk about new playground, new playmates when they're helping a new addict in recovery. New playground, new playmates. Get rid of those people that could drag you into sin. But really what this is telling us about the greater righteousness is it is something worth holding to. Jesus puts a pretty heavy cost. The greater righteousness is worth your eye, is worth your hand. It is worth more than those together either. The greater righteousness is something so beautiful and so marvelous, this wholeness, completeness, that if there is a part of you that begins to follow a seed of unrighteousness, that threatens to pull you away from wholeness, completeness, from flourishing in the kingdom of God, it is worth removing that which causes the sin. The greater righteousness is always willing to pay the cost to keep the heart focused on Jesus, to keep a life of wholeness and fullness and flourishing and completeness in the kingdom of heaven. After all, that's what all this is about. It is where we find our true completeness. So let us protect it with everything we have.